Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with the Dispatchers Roundtable, and this is going to be round number 32. It is August 19th, and man, oh man, we are already just blazing through this month. It has been an interesting one. There's been a lot of different things going on, national conferences. We've got more conferences, state conferences that are going to be coming up, whether it be NINA or APCO, and it's just going all the way on until from what I believe will be the last one to close it out for the year, which will be Dare to Be Great 4, an amazing virtual event that's going to be coming to you and powered by Within the Trenches Media. We are back, and it is going to be excellent. I am very, very excited for that, so make sure to look out for that. But before we get started with this round, as always, a word from our sponsors.
At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Carbine, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbine demo, please visit carbine.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Oh yeah, welcome back once again. This is round number 32 of the Dispatchers Roundtable, and I'm going to go ahead and throw in this intro music. Hopefully you can hear it.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable.
As always, when we start these out, I'd like to welcome all of you to the Dispatchers Roundtable, Open Mic Live, all of that. I'm not sure why this is starting again.
Welcome to.
But that makes me laugh because this is just something new that StreamYard added in, where you can you can add on background music. So I added it in there so I don't have to get mixed up with hitting the buttons, but they automatically have it on loop. Thank you, StreamYard. So now I have just unchecked the loop there, and we'll see where it goes. One of these days, I am going to have that intro video, and I'm going to have it animated where, just like the picture where it shows the gloves, they're going to come right in as the bell rings, and it'll say the Dispatchers Roundtable, and we will go from there. But for now, we have this stuff that happens because this is live, and there's nothing else you can do but laugh. So, welcome again to the Dispatchers Roundtable, round 32. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Carbine, and this is going to be an exclusive Carbine DRT episode. The topic for today that we're going to be discussing and just kind of going through a few different things with new technology, but it is improving school safety through technology. And, there's a lot of things that have been happening lately, actually for years. And so this is going to be a good conversation. I'm excited. But as always, as I threw in there, good afternoon to everyone, and roll call. Where are you watching from? I know a lot of you who join in, you're joining in while working, so you can't always type something in. But if while you are watching, you have a question, a comment, or anything like that, please make sure to throw that in the comments section, and we'll make sure to go over that, answer any questions or anything like that, especially for this topic here. So, again, I'm excited. Also, a shout out to patrons. As always, thank you to the patrons of the podcast. A perk for patrons only is you get audio versions of the DRT as well as open mic and the media partner spotlight sessions. So, if you are looking to become a patron of the podcast, you can check us out and support us, and that is patreon.com/WTT podcast. That information will go up on the screen at the very end when I bring that up as well. So make sure to check that out. And things are just moving along, man. Fresh back. Well, not fresh back. It's about a week after APCO, but it was an excellent conference. We were out there. Actually put a video out there for some of the stuff that Carbine is doing and showing everything around their booth as well as Apex and a bunch of different stuff. So make sure to check that out too. And more videos that are going to be coming out soon. So make sure to check out that on YouTube and on Facebook, as well as Twitter and on LinkedIn. We're everywhere, man. Andrea, what is going on? Hello, hello. And Jeannie from Kentucky, my girl, what is going on? It's good to have you both here. And I'm going to bring my guest up on the screen right now, and we're going to get this started, get going through this conversation. We're going to learn a little bit more about my guest and what he does, but also just going through a lot of this information because I asked a lot of you, if you have technology that has been implemented to help support and improve school safety, send me a message. I want to hear some of this information. So I did have a good friend of mine who sent me a picture and a video of his center, as well as some information, and then a good friend, Dominique, who also sent in some information as well that we're going to be going through here. So my guest today is the VP of Public Safety Sales for Carbine, and his name is Giles Tipsord. Hello, sir.
Hey, Ricardo, how you doing today?
Oh, I am doing all right. How are you doing?
I liked your intro. That was good. It's good to know that I can sit here and make a mistake. I'll probably have a couple of coughs here and there from my post-COVID cough, whatever the case should be. Earlier when we were getting ready, I noticed that I sit with a crooked head all the time, so I'm trying to fix that as well as we're moving along.
I did the same thing for all the time that I was in dispatch, apparently, when I wasn't wearing my headset because it didn't always work. I would sit this way as well with the phone sitting there. And I'll tell you what, when I was out of dispatch, the first time I ended up going to a chiropractor, the doctor took an X-ray. And he goes, I need you to come here, Mr. Martinez. I need you to look at this. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to tell what that is. I'm not a doctor like you. And he's like, no, 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 no. It is obvious. So in the X-ray, you see my whole body with my head tilted. And he goes, you
Yeah.
need to come like every day because we need to help fix you.
It's kind of like the Forrest Gump one, right? Where they sit there and they're on the bench and they're sideways. That's how I felt when we turned on the video, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And definitely with the intro and the music messing up and everything else, I have found out of all my time not only doing this, but going to different conferences, whether it be, just a speaking session for an hour or doing a keynote or a closing or whatever. If I mess up, I immediately call myself out and I will start laughing because to me, it's better to call myself out to kind of take that power away, right? So it doesn't mess
Yes.
me up while I'm talking and people are laughing with me rather than at me. So I would
I
rather
thought you
have
were
that.
scratching there for a minute. I was going to let it go. I thought you were doing a little scratching with your music for a minute. So when you called out the mistake, I'm like, hey, whatever.
That's right, man. Yeah, it was a remix, just wicka wicka,
Yeah,
just going through it. Ah, so much fun. And when it's live, there's nothing you can do
that's
but call
right.
yourself out. Oh man, this is good stuff though. I'm excited to have you on here and just to even more so to learn more about you. I had some notes and information that was sent to me, and of course, LinkedIn, just looking at everything, and you have a storied experience, background, and everything with public safety, but also on the private side. So just jumping in right here, what is your public safety background? How long have you been in public safety? And, how did you start out?
I appreciate the question first. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. I've been fortunate, as I say, to serve my country twice. I spent time in the military as a military policeman. And then after getting out of the military, I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona. I joined the Phoenix Police Department, worked through a variety of different positions during my career there. After I retired as unit commander, I went into technology sales, where I've been for the last 12 plus years selling a variety of different technologies. And I think what has helped me is my previous roles when I'm talking to police agencies, you know, uh, understanding the process they go through when they're looking for technologies. What does it mean for them? What kind of problems does it help them solve? Is it part of their policing plan? Is it improving their communications, the response times to calls, how they're managing resources, the limited resources that they have? Knowing that there's a process that they have to step through, and being patient as you're working through those, because I don't think everyone that has never sat on the other side of the seat understands that there's a process and ways to follow through. So I've been very fortunate. And if I could do a preemptive strike,
Mhm.
sometimes, I've heard people having discussions about what's your story. And when it comes to the communications, your colleagues, Aaron, and I'll tell you my story that it took me years to recognize, because believe it or not, cops can be a little arrogant when they're young. I started at 21 years old, and kind of out of a big head, and you know, bumped bumped chests with people on occasion, and egos. And that included my communications colleagues. What I didn't recognize early in my career, but it took me time to recognize, is every time I was in a fight, every time I was in a car pursuit, anytime someone was shooting at me, and I hit a button for help or grab my radio, it always came. What I didn't recognize early in my career is that there's a professional sitting on the other end that's taking all that information, hearing my voice, hearing me get all amped up, looking for assistance, etc. And it really, as time moved along, it opened my eyes to what my professional colleagues do on the other side. And then as my career progressed, I tried to share that with the younger uh, police officers and supervisors coming up. Remember your colleagues on the other end, because not only are they helping you through this, but they're experiencing it with you as well. So that's kind of my story when it comes to my communications colleagues and communications professionals.
I think that's really important, because I remember a time specifically where I was in dispatch. It was a night shift, and one of the sergeants had brought in a new guy who had recently started, and he he kind of gave one of my partners some crap a little bit, and I remember the sergeant turned around and said, "No," and he's like, "What?" And he goes, "These are the folks who are watching you on the other side. You need to treat them well." And it was just like telling, like going through the ropes, just kind of like, how you're saying, you would tell the younger folks that are coming in and how important those colleagues are. And I remember we were just kind of standing there watching, and the dude's like, "Okay, I'm sorry." But he became one of our, big advocates as well during that
Yes.
time. It was good.
And what helped me is also, I had a really good friend going through the academy, and she picked up an injury and she wasn't able to graduate. So she was going to go to our communications bureau and
Mhm.
rehab until she got healthy to go back to the academy. Well, 30 some years later, she decided not to go back to the academy, and she's been in communications ever since. And she's really a shining example to me of a professional that decided to stay in a different role, that was still serving in the community, serving policing. And it gave me, my time over the years and having conversations with her, gave me a lot more insight on the things that they deal with, even more so than I could pick up on my own, right?
Yeah.
So having conversations with people can be at certain levels, but when you share a loss of an officer that that person knew as well, or a critical incident, and you can talk to somebody that you've known for a long time, they obviously give you much more insight to how other people are feeling during those times as well. That sometimes myopically, you only look at it from your perspective. You're not looking at it from other people's perspective as well. When you're responding to a call of a baby in a pool or something like that, that everyone on the other line is either a mother, a father, a brother, a cousin, a sister. So in their minds, they can envision, unfortunately, that could be someone else in that pool or in that car crash. So it really hit me, the emotional part of that over the years.
So Before we get into this technology piece, I've got a question then listening to you say all of this. How important is it, in your opinion, how important is it to have that understanding on either side of how, things work?
If you want to be more effective and more efficient from both sides, Phoenix PD did a really good job of sending their younger officers down to the communication bureau, seeing it, sitting in a chair next to a dispatcher or a call taker, et cetera, and understanding that. And they did a good job also of sending dispatchers, call takers out into the street as well, so they could see it from a firsthand perspective of being in a police car, understand what it was like going around. And I think each side learned to respect each other more. Like, man, I keep getting all these burglary calls. Who did I upset in dispatch today, right? This one's not even in my beat. And before you could track them all, why is this person clicking me for 30 straight seconds, right? Before radios had that capacity to do that. There was a language, etc. there. But just like senior officers would teach junior officers to show respect internally, not talking about respect for the community, etc. That's a whole different thing, but internally
Yeah.
for your colleagues, they would also teach them like, hey, dude, one day you're going to have a critical incident and you're going to need help. And that person is always going to get you that help. But don't you want them to like you as well when they're trying to find you the help and resources that you need? And do you really want to take every burglary call in your squad area time after time after time? Just be professional both ways. It works both ways, right? It's a mutual respect.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And there are some times when when ranks and such aren't made apparent. And
Yes.
what I'm getting at as well is that there was a time for almost 6 months, I think it was, where I was on the radio and I was working mornings. And I had a good friend of mine who was working in one of the cities. And there was another gentleman who would work with him all the time, and I thought that person was a sergeant. And a lot of times, you give the call to the other officer that's there versus the sergeant.
Right.
And because of that, I was sending my friend to all of these calls. And one day he came up to have coffee with me in the morning, early in the morning, and he goes, "Man, I'm just curious." And I said, "Okay, what's up?" And he goes, "How come I always get these calls?" And I was like, "Well, isn't so and so a sergeant?" He goes, "No, he's he's an officer just like me." I was
He
like,
wasn't going to tell you. He was thankful he wasn't getting those calls.
"Right, yes." And I thought, "Oh, dude, I am so sorry." He goes, "I thought I upset you, man." He goes, and I was like, "No." So that whole time, and we still joke about it now. Like, I haven't been in dispatch for like 9 years now. I dispatched for 13 and a half years, but I've been out for 9 years now. And we still joke about it every so often. He's like, "Man, I thought I pissed you off." And I was like, "No, dude, I had no idea. I thought the other person was a sergeant and such." But you know, going along with all of that, it's good. It's very important to be able to understand both sides and get together and just go forth, because we're all working together and
Right.
for a same cause and everything. Now, for you, going having all of this experience and then going into the private sector of 911. Now, for that part of it, again, as we're talking about importance and such, how important do you feel, in your opinion, is it that you are coming into this space and having that experience to be able to help to I guess give that experience towards different, products and technology and everything that ends up being built to go out there for public safety.
Yeah, what's the old adage? There's one thing to show somebody how to do it. There's another one to teach them and for them to experience it, right?
Hmm.
So when private industry, whether it's Carbine or any other company, is developing technology for the industry to support them, right? It's I can't explain to you in words how critical it is for them to have industry experts that have sat on the other side, whether it's a dispatch supervisor, a police officer, a police supervisor. When you're designing technologies to suit those people's needs, just because your development engineer thinks a widget looks cool doesn't really mean that it is. And
Right.
also understanding that people have, processes and procedures and way that they're trained that, hey, this is our flow. And if we bring this in and you don't match our flow today, improve the technology, but kind of match our business flow today, we have to do a lot of retraining, We have to people's mindset mistakes may occur. So I think it's extremely important. That being said, I think it's also important that you have a mix. You need industry experts paired with people that maybe have been in business for a while or developing technology, because it's like the yin and the yang. And in my opinion, 2 plus 2 equals 8. But if you don't have both sides, I don't think you're seeing the value of both.
Mhm. Yeah, I fully agree, and not only that, there's a trust factor right there, right?
Yes.
It brings more of a trust when you have folks like us who are doing different things, and being able to kind of speak on it from the perspective of a user, right? So I remember one time I had gone to train a group of dispatchers on a text to 911 and a backup phone system for the company that I was working for before, and they thought that I was just simply a tech person. And I immediately, after I said who I was, said, for before this, for 13 and a half years, I was a 911 dispatcher, call taker, and supervisor. And I'll never forget, one of the dispatchers in there said, I am so glad that you said that, because if you had just been another IT person coming in here telling us how to do our job,
Totally agree.
you would have never made it out here alive. And I was like, okay, well, nope, I come from where you come from.
Totally agree. And I think it's important for companies to also recognize that talent that is joining their organization. So you instantly have credibility when you walk into the door, right? You have the level field here. And when
Mhm.
someone walks in, most people are going to give them some, okay, you're starting here. But someone that has sat in that seat, worked that job, they started up here. Now they can go up a little bit more if they want. They can come down if they don't do a great job, but they instantly, yep, I know why you're doing that. Yep, I understand that. Yep, I understand that. It saves so much time and energy for a communications professional when they're talking to someone, that they don't have to, well, the reason I do this is because I got to go from A to B to C to D. It's just, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about how we can improve this workflow for you or make it faster so you can get
Right.
the resources out there sooner, or identify whether you need all those resources or not. And I think that's what technology is going to be. Pardon me. The next step in technology to me is two parts. One, it's interesting when people say, I'm not really ready for a cloud environment yet. We do your banking on your phone. You right? You have Spotify, you have
Yeah.
Prime. I mean, I can go down the list of all the things that you do. So let that same technology that's helping you be more efficient as a person be more efficient in your business world as well. Right. So I think that's important. And let that technology help you understand. Someone calls 911, what's your emergency? Oh, there's a big car wreck out here. There's 4 cars and there's people all over. Okay. Looks like I got to send 3 apparatus. I got to send 2 ambulances, 3 police cars. They all go flying there.
Yeah.
There's 4 cars and there's 4 people standing around arguing. No one's lying in the ground or whatever the case may be, versus, hey, cool, let me send you this link. Hold up your phone. Let me take a look at the scene real quick. Right. And they send the video to the call taker or the dispatcher. And they're like, no problem, sir, man. We're going to get somebody out there to hang up and go, 1 car, 1 fire truck. That's it. So in times with constrained resources, like as people, we have personal constrained resources, right? We all have all these things we'd like to see, do, buy, and whatever, but we have to make a decision with the funds that we have available personally. It's the same thing with any public safety organization. I used to tell my boys, I joke with them, I go, here's my cup of water. And think of this as our bank account at home. When I got to pour a little bit out for the mortgage, I got to pour a little bit out for this, then it goes down. It's the same thing in public safety, right? There's only so much money available. So how do you be as effective and efficient as you can with your resources?
Oh man. Yes. And also, how do you start to prepare? Because when new technology is coming in, there's a lot that goes into it, right? How do you prepare an emergency communications center for new tech, and especially for this topic that we're talking about on improving school safety. I remember early on there was talk about just setting up cameras, and like, okay, well, is there more that can be done? And
Yeah.
then if there is someone who's there at the center who has a kid that goes to that school, like, they're constantly watching, they're watching the cameras, but then what do you do from there? Is there more? And of course, this was years ago now that
Sure.
I'm talking about, because the technology has definitely advanced over the last few years. So I guess from you, in your experience, and you can talk from both sides as well, but how does one, at least from the industry partners side, help prepare an emergency communications center for this new technology that might be coming in, no matter what it may be?
That's a great question. I'll hit it from a couple different angles.
Hmm.
One, I'd encourage people when they're looking to how do we solve this problem, look at industry experts. What's APCO suggesting? What is NINA suggesting? What is IACP suggesting? What are some of the regional leaders in your area doing? What are they progressing for? What are the technologies that they are looking at? Who's cutting edge in your area? Not bleeding edge, cutting edge, right? Because you have responsibilities for your technology. Mentioning the schools, 15 years ago, if a school maybe had CCTV, right, and that was their version of some safety. On occasion, a door lock here and there. So now the schools have taken this, I call it a cylindrical approach, a circular approach to it. I may be a big university and have license plate recognition running in my parking lots because I'm looking for convicted felons, sex offenders, et cetera, driving onto our community, right? Okay, now I get further into there. Now what do I have? Well, I have CCTV. Okay, that's good. I can have some door locks. That's great as well. Um, then I have 911. Hey, I can call 911 from my fixed line, and now I can call 911 from my cell phone, where a lot of people are calling from that. What's next with that? I call Ricardo, and let's call him Little Ricky's in a room, and he calls 911 and says, "Hey, I got my phone. I'm in a room. Mrs. Smith and somebody's dad came in here, and they're having a fight." Okay, what room are you in? 211. No, no, no. What part of the school are you in? I don't know. I'm Little Ricky. I'm 9 years old. I'm in room 211. But I've called 911 because my parents have taught me to call 911. Okay, this is 911. We're going to send you a link on your phone. We're going to text you. It's going to say ABCPD. Click on that link. The minute they click on that link with newer technologies, the call taker can see now exactly where that person is, because it may be a huge school and they don't know if they're on the north side or the west side or the east side, or they're hiding in a closet and they can't leave the room. Now you can pinpoint their location. Now you can get pictures from that person. Now you can get video from that person. So the nice thing about that, when it's cellular technology, is it moves with you. If I'm on a landline, I call 911, I go, "I gotta go, the bad guy's coming." I hang up and take off running. You've now lost contact with the person. But with newer technologies, you can track where they're going and send help to where that person is.
See, and that is definitely good, because for the longest time, especially during the time that I was in dispatch, just for a simple alarm that was going off somewhere, we didn't know. Like, if it came in, or if we were calling one, it would go, because of the what is it? The MLTS, the whole phone system and everything. It would
Correct.
just be to one address, but it could be a completely different room. Or in some of the places, which was the craziest thing for us that we thought about, was that we would get an alarm, or the address would pop up, but it would be in a different building,
Right.
complete different building on the other side of the county campus where we were located. We're like, I don't know what to do. I
And
don't
if
know where
it's
to go.
and if it's multi-story, right? So newer
Yes.
technologies can also tell you the elevation. There's a big difference between being at 0 and 65 feet, right?
Hmm.
So the technologies are there to help you in that regard as well. And I encourage all agencies, when you're looking for new technologies, look at what's out there. Test the technologies. See, touch, feel. Have people prove that they can do what they're saying that they can do, because that's important. You're making a decision that's fiscally responsible for your organization and to protect your community. So look at all the technologies that are out there, and don't be afraid to swing the bat on something that you're not used to or you're not comfortable with. I mean, 15 years ago, everyone drove to Blockbuster to pick up a DVD, right? Before that, a video, whatever, or Netflix was sending you something in the mail. No one goes to the mailbox today to get anything from Netflix. And if they don't have it at a moment's notice, they're all annoyed at their phone or their cellular network or whatever. Communications is going in the exact same direction
Yeah.
in 911, in my opinion, and 311, et cetera.
No, I fully agree. One thing really quick, When I was 18, I actually managed a Blockbuster.
There you go.
I worked there for 2 months, and well, just my work ethic, the main manager was like, "We're gonna make you a manager." I was like, "All right, awesome." But I just brought that up because you mentioned Blockbuster. But you're right. There's so much technology, like the stuff then, like you were saying, there was a certain way we did things. And then, Netflix comes along and just there goes Blockbuster, destroys
You
it, and
you
then
have
they
yeah,
just
you have some listeners
streamline.
on here right now that can remember back in as a call taker, they're filling out cards and sending them places. When I first got into public safety, Phoenix was coming to the end of that. But in my first 10 years at Phoenix PD, I can't tell you how many times where they said, the system's gone down, we're now back to cards. And you're like, what? But this is 1997, 1998. What do you mean we're back to cards again? So it's interesting the leap forwards that technology has taken and will help us improve.
And I think it's really good too because of it in a way, the way this whole the whole generation is now, like you were saying, everything is right here right now. Everything is in the palm of your hand. And I know I've heard some folks say, "Well, I don't know if people are going to be able to learn how to use certain technologies to be able to improve, like school safety or anything else." But then you think they're on their phones all the time. So this is not going to be a hard thing, even if it's an app or whatever. This
Yeah.
is something that they're kind of used to already. It's just going to be one more thing. It's just like in dispatch in certain ways, which for those who are watching and listening right now, I'm not saying at all in any way, add another monitor. That's not what I'm saying because stuff
Right.
now can all be in one place, right?
Right.
So it's just one more thing that gets added to what we're doing. It's just like, you think about text for 911. A lot of people were freaking out because they thought they were going to have to hire more people to just do texting. And then what did they find out? It wasn't as big of a thing as they thought. And it is just because, I firmly believe that with a strong public education campaign, especially like here in the state of Indiana, because they have texting statewide, they put it out there as this is not supposed to replace a phone call. This is for if voice isn't
Yeah.
enough, if you're hiding or whatever, you can text to 911 and get help that way.
You're riding around in an Uber and it's going in the wrong direction. And you don't feel like I can call 911 in front of this person because they've locked my door. What if I text 911 and they can send me a link and I can hit the button and they know exactly where I am and they can send me help? What if I've been assaulted by my partner and they're in the same room with me and they're trying to go to bed and I'm afraid to leave or whatever the case should be, but they're used to being on my phone all the time?
Mhm.
Can I utilize that technology to help myself? And going back to what you're saying about can people learn? If you've been around for a minute, like you and I probably have, we remember when the internet started and the screeching sound you used to hear. The new generation getting hired has no idea what a delay is or a lag. If it takes more than 2 seconds, they're hammering on their phone or hitting their laptop saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's taking this long." So I believe our new professionals coming into public safety today, whether they're in dispatch, call taking, policing, whatever, they have an expectation of the latest technologies and they want to work for organizations that have the latest technology. So for those people that have been around 3 minutes,
Mhm.
right, their challenge is it's a different personal culture, but it's also a different technology culture and what they're used to. And if they were honest with themselves and sat down and go, first time I sat down here 25 years ago, we did it this way. Then 10 years later, we did it this way. 20 years later, we're here. 25, we're here. What's next? So, my boys could care less that I share the story of you don't even know how long it takes to load a page anymore or whatever. You're streaming 19 different things at once. They're like, Dad, we don't care. We when I hit that button, I want it to work. Right.
Right. Yeah, and it's just like, being in dispatch when we would have something new come in, sometimes people would say, "Well, this is kind of how it works," and that we would just be like, "We just want it to work." Like, if there's something, shortcuts or whatever, tell us that, but, like, the back end stuff, like the deep dive,
I don't, yeah,
no,
I don't
we
care.
don't need to know, it just needs to work.
Some of my technology guys on the team, I'm like, hey, listen, sometimes it's just a yes, no answer. If Ricardo says, does it do this? You can say yes, and that's fine. You don't have to say, yes, it does that, but we have to work through the flux capacitor as we're heading over to here. We have to do this over there. They don't care. They want to know, does it work? Does it make it more effective, more efficient? Do they serve the community better? Are they reducing call times? Are they helping with their resources? Your IT guys, they're going to want to know if it works, right?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, IT stands for three things in my mind. And it's information technology, the improvement team, or the impediment team. And if you don't get your IT department engaged early on any of these projects you're working on, trust me, having bought technology and thought I could just shove it down someone's throat, they become the impediment team. So learn early, work with your IT partners.
Right. Yes. No, definitely. And so I want to look at some of the information that was coming in as well. I see there's stuff coming in the comments and everything. And Andrea says here, there's still agencies that go to cards to have a CAD maintenance or upgrade, which I definitely believe because we did that even in
Yeah.
2011, 2012 when I was still there towards the end. That was happening with us, and we would have newer folks that would be sitting next to me, and they would say, "What do we do?" And I would say, you see this here? This is where you go now."
Wow, where did you get that, out of a museum? Yeah, I got an idea. Look at technologies that allow you to do that without doing that. What do we do with our phones, right? We have our cell phones and we get a lot of information out of there. And in the background, these upgrade constantly for you, for your apps, etc. There's
Mhm.
nothing worse also working on something and you have, let's call your laptop a server, right? And all of a sudden you're in the middle of a presentation and it reboots. Why not have it in the background somewhere in a cloud where it's geo redundant and the things can just happen automatically, where you don't have to shut anything down to go through an upgrade and cross your fingers that everything connects correctly, etc. That's got to be such a challenge when people go, well, I don't even know what a card looks like. What am I supposed to do? I've been here 7 years and now we're doing an upgrade and I have to do that. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, yeah. It's an obstacle that you have to navigate through, and people learn sometimes just on the fly, like you're saying. When stuff goes down, they're like, "What do we do?" I'm like, well, this is what you got to do now, and you have to deal with it. But you looking back over here at some of the stuff that came in from social media and everything, when I was asking about um, technology to improve school safety and such. A good friend of mine had mentioned here, so like new apps are being implemented in school districts to ensure our children and staff can report emergencies in real time. So how is this information being relayed to local authorities in that real time?
I think it depends on the app that they're utilizing.
Hmm.
Look for a technology that allows direct communication to your 911, 311, your all those call play. You want a technology that does it. And do you really need an app? So Carbine doesn't require an app. I'm just saying from the perspective of Carbine, we don't require an app to go on somebody's phone. You dial 911, we can text message, et cetera, et cetera. I think if you have looped communication via certain apps, there's a possibility that something gets missed or doesn't go where it needs to go. I think you have to look for a communications platform that allows you via your normal tendency, whether it's your landline or your cell phone, to connect automatically to your public safety providers, right? If
Hmm.
I'm calling the mental health line, if I'm calling 911, if I'm calling 311, whatever it is, I want it to go there directly. Look for things that can help you. We had an incident with a young girl that was having a situational problem. She didn't call 911, she called her mom. And her mom called 911. But because of technology that they were using, they could actually direct connect into that young lady's phone, even though she had not called 911 herself. They had gone around through the mom and reached back to that child. So I think anything that you can do that will allow you direct connection will speed up the service that you're looking for. And it's time, right? Time is so important when it comes to getting a resource somewhere, whether it's life saving or crashes in the middle of the road and, a mental health professional to talk to somebody. It's time that's really important to you.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think I know the call that you're talking about. I had the dispatcher come on and kind of talk about how all of that happened, and having that connection and everything worked very well. But I do remember at some times when that type of technology wasn't there, and someone's calling, from the other side of the county or even in a different
Right.
state, and they're like, this person is over there, I don't know their address. Like, okay, well, we're going to do everything we can in our power
Yeah,
to
describe the
find this
building.
person.
Describe the building to me, right? What does it look like? Oh, well,
Something.
I'm in Phoenix. It's a stucco house with tile roof. Okay, there's 500,000 of those. Can you help me out a little bit more?
Right. But then, when you kind of look at some of this new technology as well, and as you're talking about having this direct connection, what about the training for that? Because not only do you have new tech that is here for schools, you've got to train those who are answering the calls, right? But also, how does that work with the school? So one of the things here that was also mentioned was training for school personnel. Are school personnel receiving ongoing training when apps or software or whatever is receiving upgrades? And that's a good question, because that's something that I don't know either. And I need to I'm going to ask my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law is a teacher in Florida.
Yeah.
And after reading this, I thought, yeah, I kind of thought about that as well. What are your
Those
thoughts on that?
that's an important question, and
Hmm.
it's important to ask the service provider whatever technology you have. Do you have license plate recognition? Do you have a 911 solution? Do you have CCTV? How does it come when a new software upgrade occurs? All of a sudden, poof! I used to say this to the IT folks. You can't make a big change because when I update my iPhone, I don't want it to all of a sudden it comes on and it's an Android system. What the heck happened, right? I want to be
Yeah.
able to still understand what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important that when you're looking for a provider of a service, understand what they provide to start for training, etc. And how do they train when things are going along as a contract's moving along? How do they upgrade their software? Do they have notes that come out? Do they have videos that come out? Do you have it as part of your contract that if it's a major change, one, you agree to it first, and two, are they going to help you with training? So I think those are all important questions to ask your providers of your different technologies, and select the ones that invest more in that for you. Because again, training, there's a reason why there's repetition, right? Repetition, 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 because it becomes secondhand knowledge. No one will argue that a 10-year person, whether they're sitting in as a call taker, a dispatcher, or a police officer, or whatever, is probably a little bit better prepared for certain events than someone that's been there for 10 months. That's why sometimes when a critical incident comes in, a decision can be made like that. We're moving that over to such and such because she or he is better qualified to take that one, right? It's
Right.
it's it's the same thing with your training. You have to make sure that they're providing you a solution that works for your organization. So I would always ask those questions. And if you don't feel like you're getting the training you need, tell somebody. As a person that served in several leadership roles in policing, I can't fix what I don't know. And there might be things that change from the time when I was pushing a patrol car around. And if it's affecting you negatively, you need to tell somebody, or even better yet, have that communication with your management team of, hey, before we actually implement something, can we talk about it as a team? Can we see what it's going to be? Can we give you some input? If you have servant leaders within your organization, they want to know what will help you work more effectively and efficiently. They don't want to break your system. They don't want to break how you serve the community. So I think it's important to have those communicate, but it's ongoing communication,
Hmm.
and feed your feedback. Your providers of your technology should absolutely be open to feedback from you as well, right? As a user of the technologies for the features that they want to use, and then ask yourself the type of platform that we have. If we're forward thinking, does this require someone to come in and replace a server? Or can this come to me via the cloud after they've gotten into a room with a case of Monster and they have their software developers and they're drinking Monster for 2 weeks and hammering around at the keyboard? And now we can deploy it to you seamlessly. You want to look at those things as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to excuse me, have that conversation, not just that conversation, but those who are using this as well, to feel comfortable,
Right.
to be able to come to someone and say, look, I feel like this might not be the right thing, the way we were, trained for this, or maybe the way, the call is coming in or whatever. Because one of the things that I did a lot with the other company that I worked with was sit with a lot of these centers and just ask them, how would you like this to be implemented?
Right.
How would you like to see this coming in? And I feel like it's kind of the same way with your company as well, in listening to the users, because I mean that is what's going to make it the most successful, right? For those to feel even more comfortable and to trust
Yeah.
what it is that they're using to not only help them, but also those out in the field, and of course those that are going to be there in the school as well.
And you can tell me what the perfect platform looks like for you today, Ricardo. We're going to go out and let's just say we go out and design it, and we show up 90 days later to implement it. You go, I've thought of two more things I need to get done. Well, I want to work with someone that has the ability to go, that's a great idea. Do you have a voice to the customer group? We want to be a part of that. And we want to take those things in, and we want to listen to people, because city, county, states operate differently. Geographically, people work differently. Languages may be different in one city versus another, what they have to do to support their communities as well. So how can I work with a provider that gives me the flexibility to make those changes sooner, not every 5 years on a refresh, or every 7 years, whatever the case may be?
Exactly. Yes. Now, I want to look here in the comments really quick. We've got one here that says, "What if a student is unable to speak aloud with 911 for fear of their safety during, say, a school shooting incident?" Now, on top of that, there was also a comment that talks about cell coverage and interoperability, and many schools do not have good cell coverage inside school buildings. Why is this happening? But also, not just that, but with different solutions, does that kind of hinder some of that new technology when trying to get a hold of people,
Yeah,
sending a link or whatever?
it certainly can. Let's start with the cell technology first.
Sure.
If you're
Yeah.
finding that your schools are not having the coverage that they need, I'm not an expert in the cellular industry, but I do know there are repeaters that they can put in. There are booths that they can put in, that a school district can contact AT&T, Verizon, whoever their provider is, and say, hey, we have gaps over here. This is important to our school safety. And I know there are providers that do the research. They want to have the best coverage that they can
Hmm.
all over the place, but specifically within schools, because it's such a critical infrastructure for them. And are they doing it out of the good of the heart? Maybe, but it's also good business for them, because the last thing that anyone wants to see on the news is, well, we kept calling 911 from this room, but we couldn't get any cell connection through AT&T, Verizon, whatever the case should be. I'm not saying
Right.
anyone's name negatively. I'm just saying that's important to them.
Hmm.
And yes, if you can't talk, there are platforms out there, ours being included, where you can text back and forth with 911 when you're not on the phone with anybody, and no one has to hear your voice. But when you go back to the genesis of it, you have to have good communications first, and that's important for school districts to look at. And I think over time, I could be wrong, but those gaps are dropping. I think each year the lack of coverage drops. Now, I get that there are very rural school districts, et cetera, and that's going to take a lot of infrastructure work, and that will take time. But there are ways to fix those problems if your cellular provider will work with you to do that.
Now, what about let's say coverage for like radio coverage? For any of the school resource officers that are in there, is there that of? Are there any other ways to kind of curb that issue if they're unable to get through because it's also bad radio coverage?
Yep, that again goes back to your provider, and I'll just
Hmm.
throw out a couple names. Are you a Harris group? Are you a Motorola group? Who's providing your towers? Where's the coverage? Have you asked them to, hey, we're having problems in these areas. Where are your towers? What kind of boost do you have coming off your towers? We were a Motorola house at Phoenix, and I
Hmm.
carried a lot of different Motorola radios over the air. I liked them because I smacked a couple people with them. They still worked every time I needed help. Um, but I think it was always important for you to provide that feedback to the provider of your communication tools. Again, they don't want to be the ones that are sitting in front of the media saying, when the principal says, I was standing right next to the SRO, they cleared on their radio 5 times and no one could hear them. Nobody wants to be there. So if those gaps are there, make sure you're making it known, and not verbally. Put it in an email to your provider of your technology, because then you can say, when someone's kind of pointing the finger at you when they're doing these post-action reviews, no, I've tried 4 times, you want to protect yourself as well. You got to keep pushing on behalf of your organization, on your behalf of your community, on behalf of the people that you're there in your capacity trying to protect them.
Yeah, agreed. Again, it's that, having that conversation, even if it's a hard conversation to have, it's one that's needed because otherwise you're never going to know. People aren't going to, they're not going to know. And people are just going to think, okay, well, everything must be fine because no
Yeah.
one has said anything yet. You've got all these issues that are going on, and maybe, for whatever reason, they just don't feel comfortable to say it. I don't
Tell
know.
somebody, tell
Yeah.
somebody within your organization that's responsible for those projects. They want to provide the best products for you to be more successful. They're spending city, county, state funds, whatever it looks like. They don't want to be held accountable either if something doesn't work right. So
Mhm.
tell somebody.
Now, on that same sense, we're talking about this new technology to try to help improve school safety. Um, from what of course, as coming from Carbine and everything, what new technology advances, are out there or being developed to ensure children's safety?
That's a great question. Well, if we're just going to talk in a communications platform,
Hmm.
the ability to move your call with you is, I think, in your location with you, to me, is one of the most critical ones. Again, I'll talk about if it's great that someone can contact 911, but if you don't know where that caller is and they can't tell you where they are, then you're really missing the boat. And that's where technology is going. Location, 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 horizontal and vertical location. The ability to send pictures. Hey, there's some guys out here shooting. I took a picture of them. Send me that picture so we can put it out there to the responding unit so they can see who they're looking for. Early in my career, well, numerous times in my career, I can't tell you how many times I get there, you're talking to the victim and they give you the description of the suspect. You're like, man, I drove right past that car, or I drove right past that person that was walking away. And maybe if someone had the capabilities like they have today, take a picture, send it up to your local police department, let them put that out to responding units, they can see what they're looking for at the time.
Hmm.
So anything that can, there's other school safety things, and I'll talk non-carbine here for a second. What kind of locking mechanisms do they have in their schools for their doors? What kind of policies and procedures do they have to protect themselves, their students and their employees? Very important. How much training do they do in relation to critical incidents that occur at the school, and not just with the staff, but with the children as well? How educated are the parents in the area of understanding, hey, when there's a critical situation that happens, I know you're all going to want to come here and get your kid, but just so you know, we're not letting you on the campus when you get here. You're going to have to let us work with our professionals to get this, safe in order for those things to happen.
There are there are so many different things, right? So many different aspects to this, especially when it comes to this topic, school safety, because what do we still see? And we've seen it over the years, a lot of active shooter complaints, right? There's a lot of things that are going on, and people wondering, how come we can't, why can't we go there right away? Why do we have to wait? Or what's on the news? Have you heard anything? And I actually even saw something last night on social media where someone had posted something about there was a threat to the school, but um, the news outlet didn't say what school. And so the folks in the area, like, they were just comment after comment, like nobody had any information at all. And so there's so many different things, so many different aspects of this. But one that I'll mention here right off the bat is, so there was a county in Kentucky, Marshall County, and I believe it was back in 2018, and they had an active shooter complaint there. I actually had the two dispatchers on for a podcast episode to kind of talk about this whole thing and how it went down. And it was about, I think, 8 minutes long that this was going on. But one of the dispatchers that I was talking to, her daughter goes to that school. And for that time that they're going through this incident, she had no idea if her daughter was at school. And the reason is because for the 2 days prior to this, she wasn't feeling well, so she hadn't gone to
Mhm.
school, and because, the dispatcher I was talking to works morning shift, she went to work before anybody else, so she didn't
Yeah.
know. So luckily, though, fortunately, she finally, once the incident was over and everything, um, she ended up getting a hold of her husband, and the husband told her no, she didn't go to school. But there was all of this, chaos, a lot of different things that happened. And now there are they have a new center has been implemented there. So I want to show this here really quick, before we move forward here, and then just kind of talk about this. So the director there, gave me permission to share this. I'm not going to put the audio on. I'm going to be able to hear it, which is kind of loud. I might have to remove my headphones here, but it's just showing the inside of the center and what happens when the panic button alert is pressed, whether it be at the local school or at a hospital or anything else. But just this is what it looks like here. So this is the center, and then up on the screen, it actually shows like the map layout of where whatever building it is and where it was activated, which is pretty interesting. But also the fact that this center looks the way it looks. It looks completely different than the center that I was in, but it looks
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very
Very
high tech.
modern. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
as you were talking about that, and you see those emergencies go off,
Mhm.
obviously, anyone that sat in those chairs before, my blood pressure just started to go up when you see those things. It's like Pavlov's dog, right? We're so conditioned. One of the things I wanted to put out there that if you work in a communication center that has enough personnel, that if you're ever involved in a situation where it's a possibility that any family member of yours could be there, uncle, brother, cousin, sister, whatever, tap out. Ask
Mhm.
someone else to grab the seat. And you may be the most professional person in your building, but human nature is going to be that you may make a mistake because you have something going on in your mind. And there's no shame or anything else to say, I have a child that could possibly go into that school. Could someone else take this call? Right. And that allows you to step away from the scene, maybe make some calls on your own to find out, oh my gosh, I've now been able to find out that through my daughter's home, no problem whatsoever.
Mhm.
Take yourself away from that scenario. And I'll give it to you from a different side. When a police officer is involved in a critical incident, a major fight, a shooting, or whatever the case may be, and the person gets arrested, and let's say the person had punched the officer 4 times in the face, they finally get him in cuffs. Policy for many agencies is that same person does not drive that bad guy to jail and book him into jail. You want to
Right.
separate because your personal emotions become involved. And I think it's the same thing when you're dealing, if you have the capacity with personnel, unfortunately, not everyone has the staff. You may be the only one working at that time, or there's two of you, and someone else is taking as part of that critical incident as well, and you can't step out. But if you can, I would encourage you to do that. It will help with not only your mental health, but I think it will help with the decision making on what's occurring for that critical incident.
For sure. And so with the what I was telling you about here a little bit before the video. So again, that's the news center. The center before, there was only two people on at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were the only two that were working this entire incident, and I'm not sure if this county ended up doing like consolidation as well, because you can see there's way more consoles on there than just the
Hmm.
two. But yeah, it was completely different during that time, and it was just the two of them working. Now, I asked my friend, just some pros and cons and everything about implementing something like this for the school or whatever other buildings that they're looking out for. And the response was about the implementation. That is, he says, "Why I wanted to implement, it's plain and simple. It's a free for all when this happens." And if you can automate as much as possible, it relieves some of the load off the dispatcher to get units on the way quickly. When that button is hit, it alerts 911, the school staff, and the officers and other responders via email and text. So the responders are coming even if it takes a few seconds to get radio dispatch out because of info gathering. This active shooter incidents are becoming more and more prevalent, and we need to do things to mitigate them. This gets the word out quicker and doesn't add to the already stressful work of the dispatcher. And then he ends it with a proper tool shouldn't make anyone's job harder.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Our jobs have become much, much, much more complicated for those that are still, wearing the headset, and those that are pushing a patrol car around. They're much more complicated. The pro to that is that's a con. What's the pro? They have more technology at their fingertips today than ever before to help them to be more effective and efficient. The challenge is, how do you balance that, right? How do we, the old adage is they ask you to do more with less. If you're not careful, you actually do less with less, right? So you want to look for technology that will help you do more, but not overcomplicate what you're doing today. And can it help you solve some of your staffing concerns? Here's another one. Look for a technology that if you are in a storm prone area and the storm comes in and knocks out your communication system, can you send your dispatchers and call takers somewhere else with a laptop, headphone, and VPN in and get right back up to your service and get back up and running? If you can't and you're storm prone, ask yourself what technologies are out there today that can be a cloud platform for you that would allow you to do that so you don't lose communication for your community.
Yes, and as we are going into kind of the close of this great conversation, this has been good talking with you. The incident that I believe that you're referring to as well is something that happened out in New Orleans, correct? So they're definitely storm prone, right? And
Yeah.
the director there, love that dude. Good, is a friend of mine as well. Can you kind of tell us, tell the audience a little bit about that incident, what happened, and how you all there at Carbine kind of helped them out to be able to get through this difficult situation?
So I do not know the complete specifics of it,
Hmm.
but I can give you the generalities, what I talked
Sure.
about before. And then I'd like to give you one example. So the generalities are simple. If you if your system gets knocked out and your building goes down for whatever, and maybe your generator doesn't kick in, maybe you've just been washed out, where can you go? Look for a technology that allows you to work remotely with your team. Also, at the onset of COVID, when it really hit hard in New Orleans, they were getting crushed with the calls coming in. Plus, I think the statistic was between 45 55% of their EMT personnel had come down with COVID. So now you don't have people to respond. So what they did is they did their version of WebMD utilizing our technology. What they were able to do is when someone called 911, they sent them a video link. Then they had an EMT person there that could kind of prep the person, diagnose the person, talk to them, go, you know what, you're going to be fine. Let's talk to a few things. You can go ahead and quarantine in place. Okay. The next person looks poorly. They're walking them through it. They're like, we're going to go ahead and send an ambulance your way so we can get you into the hospital. So they were looking for ways to better serve their community. Plus, they didn't have the resource to send people out. So look for those ways to fix those solutions. We're having a podcast today that's not just audio, it's video. 15 years ago, nobody was doing this, right? It's
Yeah.
it's a natural progression of things, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing this or you're in a communications district. How are you going to progress forward? And throw out the if then what scenarios, right? Why do you think that a school practices for an active shooter? Because that's a terrible situation, and that's really high up. Statistically, the percentage of that happening to your school is very low, but everyone prepares for it. It's same if you're in a very strong storm environment, you prepare for that with your personnel. How are you prepared for your communication for that? Obviously you want to take care of your people, but you also need to take care of your communication responsibilities as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And as we go into excuse me, the wrap up of this episode, just everything that we've been talking about, um any advice, any advice or anything from your perspective, but also, of course from Carbines as well, when we're talking about trying to improve school safety with new technology, and there might be those that are on the fence or just kind of nervous about implementing anything like that. What is some advice that you have for them to kind of get them over that hump?
When it comes to school safety, go to IACP. They're a thought leader, an industry leader. They provide a lot of good solutions. They give you information on ideas on protecting because your schools. There are best practices out there, period. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You may just have to fine tune or tweak the spokes for your environment itself. Look for platforms that improve your communication, the portability, the video, the data. We have that. You can go to carbine.com. You can look at our technology, see if we meet your needs. But I encourage you, you're not just going to look at Carbine and say, wow, that's it, we're done. I know what these processes look like. Compare and contrast what's available with you with or for you in the market today. And I've always been a firm believer in seeing is believing. I used to buy technology. No, no, no. I don't want you to talk to me about 2 years from now. I'd like you to show me today what it can do. I know we're going to progress forward and improve over time, but please show me today. So have that vendor demonstrate to you today what they can do today. And look at what they've produced and talk to people, talk to their references and say, listen, there's no perfect software, there's no perfect platform, but do they follow up? Do they fix things? Do they listen to me? Are you better today than when you implemented it 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 12 months ago, etc.? That's my encouragement to people.
Perfect, man. But very well said. Very well said. Excuse me. Thank you again so very much for being on and sharing your expertise, but also everything that Carbine is doing, and just kind of going through this conversation on improving school safety with new technology. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Ricardo. I appreciate everyone's time. Everyone be safe.
All right. I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening right now, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, or you might have a topic for the Dispatchers Roundtable, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This DRT episode, round number 32, has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Carbine, and this was an exclusive Carbine DRT episode. And shout out to patrons as always. Thank you so very much for everything. If you want to be a patron and help support us, you can check us out, and that is patreon.com/WTT podcast. And I thank you so very much. And a perk, as I mentioned earlier, for patrons only, are audio versions of the DRT as well as Open Mic Live. So again, if you want to be a patron of the podcast, support us, you can check us out, patreon.com/WTT podcast. This episode can be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube and Twitter. And then for the flagship show Within the Trenches podcast, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. And make sure to look out August 31st because the DRT is back with round 33. So round 33 is going to be coming up, and it's going to be the biology of trauma in dispatching. So look out for that, and have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.